My presentation is about the life and work of artist Adrian Feint, but it's also a personal exploration of how the cultural pressures he faced are reflected in my own family's history of war and mental health. My research focuses on a critical moment in Australian culture, the rigid masculine ideals of World War II and the rejection of male emotional expression. As I was writing my essay on this topic, I received historical family photographs and anecdotal stories from my uncle from World War II and realised this was a truth lived by the men in my own family. In my essay, I argued that this rejection was reflected in Adrian Feint's personal life and paintings. In this presentation, I demonstrate how this cost has been an intergenerational one to my own family. To understand Adrian Feint, we must first understand the shift in military culture. So Adrian was a member of the Sydney Camouflage Group during World War II. This group was put together by a number of Australian artists to persuade the military that the strategic use of camouflage was vital to its operations. While camouflage eventually proved its worth, contributing significantly to the Allied victory, it came under much scrutiny and was initially rejected because it was considered weak and unmanly. This was largely due to the heroic and aggressive ideals promoted in World War II. But Anne Elias, a professor in art history at the University of Sydney, tells us that these ideals were not always present in the military. There was actually a great deal of tenderness in the values of World War I. An example of this is the custom for soldiers to press dried wildflowers they had found on the battlefield. In this era, fresh-cut flowers were symbols of fallen soldiers. These are photographs from World War I of soldiers resting and admiring flowers in a field, and the other is an example of posies that soldiers would create. As history moves forward to World War II, this vulnerability begins to be suppressed. The new rigid ideal of the Australian soldier becomes one of heroic aggression and a pressure to maintain an unshakable exterior in the face of conflict. And Adrian Feint was right in the middle of this conflict. And yet, the Art Gallery of New South Wales says his paintings are reminiscent of his tranquil life. So, he was a World War I veteran and a camoufleur in World War II. He was also a gay man in an era where homosexuality was criminalised. Both his personal and professional lives demanded high levels of deception. This seems far from tranquil. He was also one of Australia's most renowned flower painters during the 1940s, the exact time these heroic ideals were enforced. And actually, if we look back in art history, his paintings appear to hold a much deeper meaning. So Feint's shell and flower paintings are highly reminiscent of the vanitas genre. So vanitas means emptiness in Latin. And it's a 17th century style that often represented flowers, fruits and shells as depicted in this painting. This genre symbolised the transience of life and the certainty of death. The vanitas paintings also coincided with times of extravagant wealth and global conflict, such as war, and are considered to be quite macabre in nature. So I also found a newspaper article from an edition of the 1948 Bulletin written by Henry Mackenzie Green. Now, he's a renowned literary critic and former art student of the World War II era, and he actually suggested in that article that Adrian Feint's paintings contain this macabre element, particularly in relation to the shells in his work. However, there's no other mention of this found anywhere in relation to Adrian Feint's paintings. This context is deeply relevant to my own family. My great-grandfather served in the bomb disposal squad in World War II, and you'll see him pictured in these photographs and on the cover of a book called A Parting Shot. And my pop also enlisted underage at 17 years old, and he became a sergeant by the age of 19. And he was also an accomplished boxer. My pop was very much the embodiment of the World War II heroic ideals: tough, disciplined, aggressive, and emotionally guarded. And he came home with a lot of trauma from the war, which eventually manifested as Parkinson's disease. So my uncle says that the war affected my pop greatly, and the emotional repression he endured became the emotional culture of our family. My uncle also attributes the mental illness of all 4 of his sons to my pop's parenting style. It was a home of harsh discipline, criticism, and a metal-studded leather strap from a very early age, without any affection from either parent. My pop's disciplinary methods were likely a function of the trauma he never addressed and a symptom of the emotional repression demanded by World War II ideals. The visible toughness that was necessary for him to be an outwardly aggressive soldier alienated him from his own children. The 4 sons of my pop, this World War II sergeant, all struggled with severe mental illness. My dad, Mark, suffered psychosis and suicided when I was 16 years old. My uncle Rod suffered severe depression his whole life. My uncle Breck attempted suicide, and my uncle Craig suffered schizophrenia. My family's tragedy is a testament to the profound intergenerational damage caused by the historical ideals of World War II. Thankfully, today, we see a cultural shift in Australia, particularly in the works of Ben Quilty. Quilty's portraits of Australian soldiers reject the aggressive, heroic ideals of World War II entirely. His figures are often nude, stripped of uniform, and exposed. They're deeply personal acts of vulnerability. Ben compels us to gaze upon the trauma that was once viewed as a tactical weakness. This courage to be visible is a shift my family and no doubt many other Australians desperately need. The effect of the Australian military culture in World War II on my own family's history has been one of forced camouflage and emotional repression. But my generation, my family, we choose visibility. We believe that true Australian strength does not lie in the concealment of the human condition, but in the vulnerable courage to show it in all its weakness.